I've always had a fascination with the supernatural. So when my friends and I heard about the old abandoned amusement park, rumored to be haunted by the ghosts of children who disappeared there decades ago, we couldn't resist checking it out. The park, aptly named Whispering Grove, had been closed for over 30 years. Stories circulated about kids who entered the park at night and never returned. It was said their laughter and cries still echoed through the empty rides. Despite the chilling tales, we were determined to spend the night there. On a foggy October evening, we gathered at the rusted gates of Whispering Grove. The entrance sign hung precariously, its paint peeling and faded. We had brought flashlights, cameras, and a sense of daring that only teenagers possess. Our group consisted of me, Sarah, Aaron, and Carmen. As we stepped through the gates, an eerie silence enveloped us, broken only by the occasional creak of a distant ride swaying in the wind. The park was a time capsule of rusted rides and decaying structures. The Ferris wheel stood tall but motionless, like a giant skeleton overlooking its domain. The merry-go-round's horses were frozen in a perpetual gallop, their paint chipped and eyes hollow. We decided to set up our base in the central plaza where an old popcorn stand stood. As we unpacked our gear, a strange chill ran down my spine, but I brushed it off as the cold night air. We began our exploration with the funhouse. The building was in disrepair, its once colorful facade now a dull, crumbling mess. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and our footsteps echoed ominously. The distorted mirrors were cracked and grimy, reflecting twisted versions of ourselves. As we ventured deeper, we heard faint giggles and whispers, but every time we turned around, there was no one there. Aaron suggested we split up to cover more ground. Reluctantly, we agreed. Sarah and I headed towards the Ferris wheel, while Aaron and Carmen went to explore the roller coaster. The Ferris wheel loomed above us, its seats swaying gently in the breeze. We decided to climb to the top for a better view of the park. The higher we climbed, the stronger the sense of unease grew. At the top, we could see the entire park bathed in moonlight. It looked almost serene, but the tranquility was shattered by a blood-curdling scream from the direction of the roller coaster. Sarah and I hurried down, our flashlights bobbing wildly. When we reached the roller coaster, we found Aaron and Carmen pale and trembling. "We saw something," Aaron stammered. "A little girl. She was just standing on the tracks and then she vanished." We decided to stick together for the rest of the night. Our next destination was the haunted house, a decrepit building that looked ready to collapse. As we entered, the door slammed shut behind us, and our flashlights flickered. The interior was dark and claustrophobic, filled with cobwebs and broken furniture. We heard footsteps above us, even though we knew the second floor was unsafe. A sense of dread settled over us as we moved through the narrow hallways. The atmosphere was oppressive, and the air grew colder with each step. Suddenly, Carmen screamed and pointed to a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. It was a child, staring at us with hollow eyes. Before we could react, the figure dissolved into the darkness. Panic set in, and we hurried to leave the haunted house. As we exited, the park's lights flickered on, illuminating the rides in a sickly glow. The merry-go-round started to spin, and we heard children's laughter echoing through the night. We ran towards the exit, but the gates were closed and wouldn't budge. Desperate, we tried to climb over the fence, but it was too high and lined with barbed wire. Suddenly, we heard the sound of footsteps behind us. We turned to see the ghostly figures of children approaching, their faces twisted in anguish. They reached out to us, their voices a haunting chorus of whispers and cries. In a final act of desperation, we broke into the park's control room, hoping to find a way to open the gates. The room was filled with old equipment and dusty control panels. As we fumbled with the switches, the ghostly children gathered outside, watching us with empty eyes. Finally, we managed to open the gates, and we sprinted out of the park, not daring to look back. As we reached the safety of our car, we glanced at Whispering Grove one last time. The lights had gone out, and the park was once again shrouded in darkness. We never spoke of that night again. The memories were too haunting, too real. Whispering Grove had lived up to its name, and the whispers of the lost children would stay with us forever.